Okay, you guys, now that we have taken our quiz, we're going to move on and we're going to talk about midpoints of segments and some other postulates that go along with segments. So, remember, a segment is an object, is a part of a line that has two endpoints. So, in Math 1, we talked about midpoint in 2D, and we're going to first start talking about midpoint in 1D, so in one dimension. When you're thinking about one dimension, you can think about the number line. If we have our segment AB, and we want the midpoint is the middle right in between. So if we are on the number line, we're basically averaging the numbers. So what we're going to do is we're going to add the numbers and then divide by 2. Just like if you were going to average your grades, you add them all up and then divide by how many there are. So if we want to find the midpoint between -5 and 14, we are going to add -5 and 14 and then divide by 2. So -5 plus 14 is 9 divided by 2. So our midpoint, or you could say average, is 9/2, which is 4.5. Our midpoint between -5 and 14 is 4.5. Fraction or decimal, either one is perfectly fine. Okay. Now you guys go ahead, pause if you need to, and take a minute and see if you can do the U-tries. So, to find the midpoint between 6, we're going to add our numbers, 6 plus 48, and then divide by 2. 6 plus 48 is 54. 54 divided by 2 is 27. So, our midpoint is 27. That one you would not want to draw a number line, because would you want to draw all the way out to 48 little tiny tick marks? I know I wouldn't. Alright, you try to find the midpoint between -5 and -26. We are just like before. We're going to add our two numbers and then divide by 2 to find. So if I have x1, y1, and x2, y2, I'm going to add my x's to find the midpoint of the x's and divide by 2. And then I'm going to add my y's and divide by 2 to find the midpoint of my y's. Now that I have the midpoint of the x's and the midpoint of the y, the midpoint of the overall points is going to be that ordered pair. So let's do an example of this. Find the midpoint of segment AB if A is at 2, 5, and B is at -3, -4. So if it helps, go ahead, draw yourself a picture. I'm going to put my B over here since they're both negative. -3, -4. And my A is 2, 5. And I need to find this midpoint, this M value. So, take my x's and I add them. So I'm going to have -3 plus 2. Divide that by 2. And do the same with the y's. -4 plus 5, divide by 2, and let's simplify. -3 plus 2 is -1, so -1 over 2 is my x value, and -4 plus 5 is 1. So my point of -1/2, 1/2 is the midpoint of the line segment AB. Good job, you guys. So what's really important is, let me go back a minute, is our formula here. Our formula is important. Okay, go ahead, pause the video and see if you can do this. You try. So, if I'm finding the midpoint of P and Q, I know that P is -1, positive 2. and Q is at 6, 1. To find the midpoint, I'm going to add my x. I have -1 plus 6 over 2. And I have 2 plus 1 over 2. I do the same with the y's. And the midpoint that I get is 5/2, 3/2. Now, could have you written 2.5, 1.5? Absolutely, they are the same thing. All right, so now we're going to use what we know about midpoints in order to find out an unknown. This time, this example is a little different than before. So we have the midpoint M of AB is at 3, 4. If A is -3, -2, we need to find the coordinate B. This time we are given the midpoint. So we need to work backwards. So, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to draw my segment out. I'm going to have my A. I'm going to have B. Now, I have my midpoint right in the middle. And I know that A is at -3, -2. And I know my midpoint. My midpoint is at 3, 4. What I need to do, I need to find my B value. I don't know what B is, the X or the Y, so I'm going to leave them as a variable. I'm going to say, since this is the second endpoint, I'm going to say X2, Y2. Now, in order to find those, I can use my formula. Remember, my formula of my midpoint is we take our X's of our endpoints, and we add them, divide by 2, and the Y's of our endpoints, add them. Oops, went to the wrong page. Did it again. And divide by 2. Guess I can't write so close to the edge, can I? So let's use that to find our B value, because I know that my midpoint is 3, 4. So I know that this X1 plus X2 divided by 2 is equal to 3. And I know that this Y1 plus Y2 divided by 2 is equal to 4. So let's set up some equations, and then it's basically just solving for our X2. So I know my X1 is -3. I don't know what the second endpoint X value is, but I do know it's divided by 2 to get our midpoint, and I know my midpoint X value is 3. Likewise with my Y. My Y1 is -2. I don't know what my Y2 is, and I need to divide by 2, and that is equal to the Y value of my midpoint. So, in order to solve for my variables, the very first thing I need to do is multiply by 2 because we're dividing. So to undo, we multiply. So I have -3 plus x squared, or not x squared, excuse me, x2 is equal to 6. Now I need to isolate for this x2, so I need to do the opposite, and I need to add 3 to both sides, and I get that x2 is equal to 9. So I know my x term, yay! Now let's find that y term. So same thing, we need to multiply by 2 on both sides because we're dividing by 2. So I'm going to have -2 plus y2 is equal to 8. Add 2 to both sides, and I'm going to get y2 is equal to 10. So my coordinate of B is 9, 10. Okay. Again, we used our midpoint formula because we knew what the midpoint was. We substituted in the values that we did know. We knew our x1 and our y1. And then we solved for our variables that we don't know, the x2 and the y2. Go ahead and take a minute, pause the video, and practice this next example. Okay, in order to do this one, I'm going to draw out my segment again. I have A and B, And we're dealing with our midpoint again. Like the example, we know what the midpoint is. Our midpoint is 2, 5. And our A value is 0, 9. And again, we're trying to find B. I do not know what the second coordinates are, so I'm just going to label them x2 and y2. Could you label them x and y? Absolutely, whatever you feel more comfortable with. Okay, so we're going to use our midpoint formula again. Remember our midpoint, what we do is we add our x's, divide by 2, find that middle point, add our y's of the endpoints, and divide by 2. So I know that my midpoint, the x coordinate is 2, and the midpoint y value is 5. So this first part is equal to 2, and I do know what my x1 is, so let's substitute in. So I have 0 plus x2 divided by 2 is equal to 2. And I know my y's. I can write my equation there as well. So I have 9 plus y2 over 2 is equal to 5. So now we're back to just simply solving like before. So first thing I need to do is get rid of that divide by 2. So I do that by multiplying. I get 0 plus x2 is equal to 4, which just tells us that x2 is equal to 4. Solve for y, same thing, multiply by 2. And I get 9 plus y2 is equal to 10. Subtract 9, and I get y2 is equal to 1. So what is my midpoint of the line segment AB? My midpoint is 2, 5. My one endpoint is 0, 9. And now I know what B is, my other endpoint. It is 4, 1. Now, how can you check yourself on these? Well, you can use your endpoints and make sure you get the correct midpoint. All right, go ahead, take a minute and pause the video and practice this U try 6 as well. Okay, this one is a little different. Here, we know our midpoint, we know the y coordinate, but we don't know the x of our A, and we do know what our B is. So let's go ahead and do this one as well. We have our line segment AB with our midpoint M. A is x, -3. B is -5, 1. And our midpoint is 1, -1. We can use our formula, our midpoint formula as well. Midpoint is equal to, we add our x's, divide by 2. We add our y's, and divide by 2. Okay, this time we only have one unknown. Yay, it's a little bit simpler, so let's get to it. So, our x's, we know that our first one is unknown. Our second endpoint is -5. Divide by 2, and that equals the x value of our midpoint, which is 1. For our y's, our first y value, wait, do I need to do that? I don't need to do my y's, do I? Because I know every single one of my y's. So let's just solve for our x. So to solve for x, we're divide by 2. So we need to undo that. So multiply by 2. And I get x plus -5 is equal to 2. Opposite of -5 is add 5. So we have x is equal to 7. So our x value is 7. I hope that one was a little bit easier for you guys. All right. And we are done. I hope this is a little bit clearer, and I hope you enjoyed the video.